How do you stop someone from talking in their sleep? Do you need anything? I asked my wife, Claire. I had to pick her up after she was injured in an accident at the lab where she worked as a number theorist. Apparently some top-secret machine malfunctioned, and that was all she could tell me about it. I'm good, she replied. I think I'm just going to go lay down and rest for a bit. Are you sure you don't want to go to the emergency room? I asked. I'm sure, Claire insisted. I just had the wind knocked out of me. There's no point in making a big deal out of it. I'll be fine. I just need to rest for a bit. Okay. I wasn't going to push her. As far as I could tell, she was acting normal. I'll come check on you in a little while. While she went to the bedroom, I went back into our home office and continued working on the spreadsheets I needed to finish before the end of the day. I was working for about an hour before I started hearing mumbling coming from across the hall, which is where our bedroom was. Thinking it might be Claire trying to get my attention, I got up and checked on her. Did you need something? I asked softly. When she didn't acknowledge me, I realized she must be talking in her sleep. I thought it was cute and decided to eavesdrop for a bit. Most of what she said sounded like numerical nonsense, which wasn't a surprise considering she worked with numbers all day, but I did hear her say the words want and baby. What the hell are you talking about? I muttered. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, I heard a baby cry across the hall. I ran over there to investigate and was shocked to find that our home office had been converted into a nursery for a newborn baby who did not sound very happy. Not knowing what the hell was going on, I ran back into the bedroom and tried to wake Claire. Time to get up. I yelled. She didn't stir. She laid there and continued to mumble. This time I heard the words beach and house. In addition to the baby crying, I could now hear the sounds of waves crashing upon a beach. I ran over to the window and peeked outside. This can't be real. Our house, which was once surrounded by similar houses in a small subdivision, was now sitting on a beach. I returned to Claire. What the hell happened to you at work? I asked. She responded by spouting off that numerical mumbo-jumbo again before saying the words rabid, zombie, and woodchucks. That was the name of a really cheesy horror movie we'd watched the night before. Oh no, I groaned. Rabid zombie woodchucks no longer sounded that cheesy when they were gnawing at your door trying to get inside your house. Submitted by /u or visceral mass link comments. My girlfriend thinks we've always been together. Me and my girlfriend have been together for 3 years. At least that's what I'm inclined to believe. Lately, it's been kind of a struggle. I remember the day we met. Not to sound corny or cliché, but honestly, it felt like love at first sight. Like the moment was meant to be. It was at a little get-together my family had put on for my 21st birthday. I didn't question why she was there. All I could focus on was, well, her face. She was beautiful, and to think that she wanted me of all people, it was damn near intoxicating. We danced the night away to a live cover band of the Beatles, and the entire night felt like a fantasy come to life. Nobody seemed to recognize her, though. All night, it was just me and her, staring into each other's eyes underneath the clear night sky. No interruptions whatsoever. When the party began to wind down and people started to go home, we both agreed that she should stay the night with me. Together, we jetted back to my apartment while I tried to focus on the road and not the sweet nothing she whispered into my ear. When we arrived, it wasn't some kind of straight-to-the-bedroom situation. We actually cuddled on my couch for hours, watching Supernatural and laughing at the clichés before dozing off in each other's arms. Unfortunately, the next morning I had work, so when I woke up, I was fully prepared to ask her to let herself out and assure her that we would see each other again. However, the first thing I noticed as soon as my eyes opened was the fact that I was alone on the sofa. The second thing was the smell of breakfast that permeated my nostrils and made my mouth water. I found her in my kitchen, hair messy, and wearing my t-shirt as she scrambled eggs. "Good morning, cutie," She smirked. I hope you don't mind. I figured I'd make you some breakfast. Consider it a thank you for letting me crash here last night. I groggily stared down at the serving of eggs and bacon. She was really making this hard. To my pleasure, though, once she handed me the plate and planted a kiss on my cheek, she was pretty much already out the door. Sorry, I don't want to be rude, I just have work, she announced hurriedly. I'll see you tonight. Before I could respond, she was gone, leaving me to quickly wash the dishes and rush out the door. Though we hadn't exchanged numbers yet, which, dumb, I know, at around lunchtime my phone began to blow up with texts. How's your day going, honey? Working hard? What's for dinner tonight? At this point, I was starting to get a little freaked out. Not knowing what to do, I blocked the number. So much for love at first sight. I was clearly wrong. However, when new texts started to appear from a new number, I knew that something was definitely wrong. Ha ha, did you block me? You silly goose. We're gonna be together forever. You can't get rid of me that easily. At this point, my heart was pounding. I responded firmly, but politely. Look, I had a really good time with you last night. I just don't think this is gonna work out. I wish you the best, and I hope you find the person for you. The texting bubbles popped up and stayed on the screen for a few minutes. Finally, a response came through. We can discuss this when you get home. Unfortunately, before I could reply to that insane remark, my boss walked by and I had to put my phone away. The day went on, and by quitting time, I had received hundreds of texts from this newfound lover. I chose you. We're gonna be together forever. Don't you remember? I've always been here for you. Obviously psychotic, right? But what pushed it straight into horror movie territory wasn't the words. It was the images, the selfies. A photo of her in the back row at my high school graduation. A picture of me at the DMV as I was receiving my license. My 10th birthday. However, the image that will haunt me the most for the rest of my life was the selfie of her, smiling underneath a face mask, in the delivery room on the day of my birth. Her appearance hadn't changed once. She hadn't aged a day in 21 years. And as I stared in utter terror at what she had sent me, a new message appeared beneath the photos. We were meant to be. Submitted by /U or Donovan 221 link comments. The man in the warehouse. Quick note, while I wrote this in a story or book format, it is, in fact, a true story, and the dialogue is as close as I could get to accurate with my memory of something that happened over a decade ago. Anywho, here goes. It was 2015, and I was interning in New York City for a small, independent fashion designer. Because she didn't have much money, her office was tucked inside one of those converted warehouse buildings shared by dozens of other creatives, painters, designers, sculptors, photographers. The warehouse had a sort of backrooms vibe, and it always smelled faintly of coffee, paint, and old fabric. It was very late at night, and the place was nearly empty. As it was Fashion Week and my boss's fashion show was the next day, I was expected to work all night. Gotta love shitty, unpaid internships. Anyways, I'd been hunched over a table in the shared space for hours, finishing last-minute alterations. My boss and her stylist were in her private office, somewhere down the dimly lit hallway, and I was alone. The only sound was the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead when all of a sudden, I heard an unfamiliar voice break the silence. Wow, you've been bending over that table all day, huh? My hand froze mid-stitch. I looked up to see a man standing a few feet away in the doorway opposite me. He was in his late 50s, maybe. I didn't recognize him. He had a coy smile across his lips and eyes that lingered too long. I laughed out of reflex more than anything. Yeah, it's Fashion Week, a lot to finish before tomorrow. He smiled, slow and deliberate. Oh, wow, so you're a fashion designer? Trying to be, I said, instantly shifting into eager intern mode, still in school. This is my first real internship. He stepped closer, closing the space between us with every word. That's impressive. You have a portfolio. The building was full of really talented artists, some famous even. Once, I'd met an Emmy-winning costume designer there, so when this man asked about my work, I figured this was the perfect opportunity to try and network. I wanted to look confident and professional. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my senior thesis, a collection inspired by entanglement and confinement. Ideas drawn from the way fabric wraps around your body. It had touches of BDSM aesthetic, but mostly it was conceptual about the feeling of being trapped, bound. I was thinking about how sheets twist around you when you can't sleep. I explained, my enthusiasm spilling out before I could stop myself. He leaned closer, close enough that I could feel him hovering over me. I could feel his eyes on me. He wasn't looking at my art, not at all. He murmured. You're so cute, do you know that? I froze. My mind took half a second to catch up before I looked up. His face was right next to mine, only a breath away. I could feel my stomach drop. Before I could move away, he leaned in and pressed a slow, wet, open-mouthed kiss on my cheek. My body went rigid. Then I felt his breath against my ear as he whispered, I have some duct tape in my office. We could have a little fun, if you want. The air in the room seemed to have been sucked out, and for one long, awful second I stared back at him in disbelief. No, I managed to stammer, coming up with the first excuse I could think of. I really have way too much work to do. Thank you, though barely above a whisper. Leave it to a woman who grew up in the early 2000s to thank a man for sexually harassing her, am I right? He chuckled, standing too close for too long. If you change your mind, he said softly, I'm down the hall. I could tell that he was reveling in the way I squirmed, in how unsafe and uncomfortable he made me feel. Then just like that, he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing off the concrete until they faded completely. The silence he left behind was deafening. My hands started shaking. Tears blurred my vision before I knew they were coming. I bolted to my boss's office, half expecting the creepy man to appear again in the doorway. When I told her and the stylist what happened, they exchanged that typical look. Half judgment, half irritation. Well, my boss said, like she was explaining something obvious, you shouldn't be showing that kind of work to strange men, especially that BDSM stuff. I couldn't believe it. Somehow, I was the one being blamed, as if it wasn't obviously his plan all along to prey on me in that way, as if it was my fault a man in his 50s couldn't stop himself from being a creep around an early 20-something intern. It's been over a decade, but sometimes I still see his face. That coy, lingering smile plastered on in perverted delight. I wonder how long he had been watching me before he decided the warehouse was empty enough to approach me, to touch me. Hours, days, weeks. I guess I will never know. But yeah. Creepy warehouse dude, let's not meet. Submitted by /U or Christina Feline link comments.